Hello, my friends, and welcome. We have some of the good news for today and not so good news. Let's start from the situation in Pokrovsk. It seems like for the last night, Russians attempted to cut the southern part of Myrnograd together with all of those villages like Suhi Yar and two of those villages which still remain in the gray zone. We have the confirmation from the Ukrainian drone, actually, that Russia sent their infantry forces. It's a very, very fresh video. Yeah, I cannot show you everything of that attack because, after all, those are the Russian infantry forces. If those were vehicles, obviously, yeah, some of the pictures are okay for this platform. But here, just, this kind of the blurred image for you to understand what happened to that Russian attack. So it failed, but Russia will attempt one more. This place was geolocated, and that's why we have the expansion of this gray zone. Russians are advancing, taking house after house, and Ukraine sees the Russian attack movements and tried to conquer them using drones. So for now, Russia still struggles to cut this entire Ukrainian group in Myrnograd. So Ukraine is very active, as you may see, in Pokrovsk itself. And Russians still cannot cross this crossroad. However, they were spotted very close to this crossroad. And another crossroad in Pokrovsk is also very close to the fighting area. So I would say that the position of the Ukrainian army in Myrnograd especially, it's very, very difficult. As for supplies, yeah, we are again speaking about supplies and the possible evacuation of the Ukrainian army group. Mainly because this bottleneck is kind of small, so Ukrainian military command, I think it should have withdrawn the forces from Myrnograd at least well before. The encirclement of Pokrovsk itself is not possible for Russians because there is basically way out from it. That's the open area where Ukraine can withdraw very easily the remaining of the troops in Pokrovsk. But for Myrnograd and all of those villages on the south, it's the different story. Here there is definitely a probability for Myrnograd to be even encircled fully, I mean physically. Russians are trying to encircle the southern group here, as I told you at the beginning of this video, and also they want to attack from the north and from Pokrovsk itself, but Ukraine so far is very active in Pokrovsk and not letting Russian infantry to cut this very important piece of the road which Ukraine potentially may use for evacuation. But again, the drones are controlling this area, so it's very, very difficult to get out from Myrnograd and all of those villages. And here I want to quote the Deep State military map source and what their analytics say about the current situation in Myrnograd especially. They say that enemy infiltration continues into Pokrovsk, where Russia has losses. Many of the Russian units were tracked and destroyed in the private households or other buildings. Russians are actively using their pilot crews who assist the infantry and also pose a major obstacle for advancement of Ukrainian forces and establishment of any logistics overall. A special attention should be put on Myrnograd because in Pokrovsk the surrounding is not possible for Ukrainian army, yes, because it's basically an open territory on the north and northwest. You can see it clearly, and already told you that Ukraine simply cannot be encircled in the settlement, but Myrnograd definitely there is a huge risk. And here Deep State confirms that Myrnograd is under the risk of being in operational encirclement. I would say Myrnograd is already in operational encirclement. Operational means that there is no physical encirclement, but enemy causes severe losses for logistics, for way outs and way in into this pocket. And here is important notice that Ukrainian fighters themselves say that there is no logistics into this settlement, into Myrnograd. Sometimes just bad weather helps to provide some of the logistics because the drone operation in heavy rain or in fog is not possible. So getting something into Myrnograd or something out is always a lottery. Foot routes are essentially impossible now, as one can run into an ambush by sabotage or reconnaissance group, drone strikes, mines, etc. Close contact with the enemy during movement has become routine. There are cases that Russian infantry manages to set up engineering obstacles in form of Czech hedgehogs. Oh, it's just a wrong translation. It's the razor wire. Now I read it in Ukrainian. Yeah, it's just the wire which is very sharp. So enemy even tries to isolate some Ukrainian forces with that stuff. And Deep State even says that there is a Rivne small settlement between Pokrovsk and Myrnograd, and the enemy presence was spotted even there. So I would say that basically Myrnograd is isolated. This area could be, well, not that far, but here it all now could be a gray zone with Russian sabotage groups operating, and Ukrainians, they're mainly forced to stay in the ruined buildings, in the basements out here, because Russia has lots of the drones. Yeah, Ukraine has those too, but you see that Russia unfortunately has more of the stuff out there. So the way out from Myrnograd, it's very, very difficult. Also, Deep State writes that our guys in Myrnograd, they receive commands from Ukrainian military to counterattack even towards those territories somewhere by the time there is not enough supplies. It's kind of weird actually for me, because without normal logistics, any sort of the counterattacks are not possible in this area. So yeah, still Ukrainian military command, it seems like even blind about the current situation, because if Russians are in Rivne, well, we may speak about the encirclement of the Ukrainian group in Myrnograd and Suhi Yar already. And Ukraine should be focused on those counterattacks on the sides to get our guys out. As I mentioned in my previous video, that's the only way out how Ukraine may finish more or less successfully this defense operation of Pokrovsk and Myrnograd. If our command continued to tell our guys to go forward, counterattack without normal deliveries, like what is happening? So I don't honestly understand this move, guys, and there is the risk, a huge risk for Ukrainian army nowadays. In Pokrovsk, yeah, Russia will just take it. Yeah, should take the red color here. Russia will just occupy it in the coming maybe days or weeks. And for Myrnograd, there is the risk for encirclement if, as Deep State writes, Rivne is being flooded by some of the Russian infantry. So basically, there is no normal way out from Myrnograd, and as they say that every supplement or withdrawal of the forces changing positions is just a lottery. Yeah, the situation here is pretty much terrible. Well, hopefully Ukraine will come out with some of the solution here, but it's very, very risky, and Ukraine should have withdrawn, as I say to you, the forces from Myrnograd well before, not letting Russians to control the way out, and which is very, very tiny. Yeah, there is the chance for Ukraine to counterattack towards Krasny Liman still and withdraw the forces from Myrnograd, or as I say to you, counterattack to Pokrovsk and also to Krasny Liman. So this is very important settlement, Krasny Liman itself. And I just hope that our guys will survive it. There are no thousands of the Ukrainian troops out there, but hundreds could be definitely encircled, and it's the huge demotivation factor for entire Ukrainian society, for Ukrainian army, not even telling about the tragedy which those soldiers could potentially face, because we know a Russian attitude towards Ukrainian prisoners of war, and how in many of the cases Russians simply do not take prisoners of war, unaliving Ukrainian soldiers just like that. Yes, they do that stuff quite often. So now I'm more than concerned about Myrnograd after Deep State report, in particular about Rivne, and we saw on the previous map that Russian infantry was spotted close to this field road, so this is nothing really. So like, what are we speaking about? So Myrnograd is in a big, big trouble, as well as those villages on the south. Yeah, analytics still do not put Rivne into the gray zone, but it is out there, as we know from reports of Ukrainian army. And here is the advancement. This map I took from the Michael 73. I always check out his maps. I already said to you about the failed Russian attack towards the southern area of Myrnograd, but here they took more ground, advancing to Kazatske with their main armed forces. And there is the risk of this kind of the attack also, and our guys could be trapped in the southern area of this pocket. And also we see that Russians continue to use aviation gliding bombs, and they have infiltration attempts right into Myrnograd from the east and northeastern side. And here I'm checking the Russian maps. They're not even saying about the encirclement of Pokrovsk and Myrnograd for now, and even for them, still Rivne is not in a gray zone. However, we have the reports of the Russian presence there. I would say that this map is just the same as deep state military map, so there are minor changes. I would say it's quite a legit one. Well, still there is no like this full physical encirclement. That is what Putin was saying even 1 week ago, proposing international journalists to come and witness everything themselves. Yeah, it's kind of far from that one, but this encirclement of Myrnograd may happen. And the deep state military map confirms the Russian advancement towards Promen. That is what changed for the last 24 hours. The Institute for the Study of War comes out with their analysis. They say that the rate of the Russian advances in Pokrovsk direction has temporarily slowed down, but will likely increase again in the coming days as Russian forces extended logistics and bring reinforcements in the area. Here they publish some of the maps, close perspective, so they say that Rivne is partially in a gray zone and that the way out is basically absent. It's all in a gray now, and it could be a big trouble for Myrnograd in the coming days. So we're gonna see, guys, what it's gonna happen. Yeah, again, I'm kind of pessimistic about what is happening out there, but I have to tell the truth on the channel. The things are like that, and even Ukrainian analytics say about the seriousness of the situation in Myrnograd especially. Well, something about the good news. According to the analytics also from Deep State military map, Ukrainian armed forces cleared the enemy in Solotka. There is not yet an update of the Deep State military map here, but with the next one I think that they will draw the pushback of the gray zone closer to the river. Apparently Russian armed forces were also spotted in Rivnopilia because they also write about the Ukrainian successful counterattack in this area. This map goes with a report of the Deep State. They say that Solotka and Rivnopilia liberated and Ukraine on a counterattack, fighting now for Nova, then Novouspenivka and this small village, I don't see the name. The villages of Pavlivka and Uspenivka were recently captured by Russians. So what they write that the day before yesterday, the Southern Defense Forces declared full control over Pavlivka and Uspenivka. According to our information, they say enemy captured Uspenivka and Pavlivka and also blocked our units in Novomykolaivka. Well, Novomykolaivka is here, so enemy, they say, blocked our forces. It's not good. So there's some good news here from Solotka and Rivnopilia and also not so good news here. So definitely they confirmed that battles took place and Ukraine was successful in those two settlements. So yeah, there is like very deep analysis for now. Like in general, the situation is like that. Ukraine now tries to keep Russians out from entering deep into reaching this river, which is the main defense line for Ukraine that comes from Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is already under the constant Russian strikes, so they use artillery systems and drones. And now let's go to Konstantinovka. Konstantinovka will be a very hot spot at the beginning of the next year in January, February, because Russia, it's now evident they sent reinforcements, and Dylan Burns, whom I spoke with recently, he will also operate in somewhere in this region. I cannot specify his location for safety reasons. Yeah, somewhere in this place. Well, he tells that Konstantinovka will be the hot spot in the coming even weeks. Well, here I am sure it's not going to be the same pocket as it is now in Myrnograd, because Ukraine has good logistics here and Russians are still struggling to advance from Chasiv Yar. The pocket is only possible if Russians are successful with Chasiv Yar, but here is kind of difficult terrain for them to advance to Konstantinovka from this area. So I guess that they will continue to push from the south, that's it. And here they advance already with their main forces. It was yesterday and it is today. They're very close to Pleshivka, which goes to Ivanopilia, and that goes to Konstantinovka itself. As for this entire group of Ukrainian towns and cities, Russia may only advance from the south, southeast and southwest if they're successful in Zoloty Kolodets and break through once again. So this kind of the situation is possible if Russia really uses everything they have, and maybe there is the attempt to do so. But in the northern territory, even if they take Liman, and they will take Liman because Ukraine has limited logistics in this area, well, then the Russians take Liman, they will not be able to go to Slavyansk because there is the river, and they themselves cut those bridges across it, and it's not possible simply to go to Slavyansk rather than swim across the river with infantry forces. But it's kind of the crazy operation which is not possible, at least during the winter time. So I don't think there is the risk for Slavyansk from the northern part, but there could be the risk for Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, Drushkivka from this southern area and southeast, maybe even southwest if Russia is successful here. But Ukraine deployed quite capable forces here, so Russians now just struggle. They're being encircled, even the small group of the Russian armed forces. Well, we'll see how it goes. I just gave my own perspective for the maybe next couple of years, how the situation could develop here. In Kupiansk, the situation is stable. Was there any advancement? No. Deep State doesn't show anything. There was a Ukrainian counterattack, which is shown, I guess, on map of Maiko 73. And yeah, there is the real situation there, the counterattack, and there is a limited presence of the Russian armed forces in the city. Ukraine is using aviation bomb strikes to hit some of the Russian positions, and we have the reference for it. Some of the building was kaputted. In Konstantinivka, Russians even attacked the local evacuation group. There is the drone flying. It was visible on this video, even though it's kind of grainy. Their truck was hit. Luckily, no one from the members of this humanitarian mission was injured, but their vehicle was definitely damaged. Proliska, that's the humanitarian fund. Help for civilians in the battle area, but Russians, they simply do not care. They hit everything which is moving. And this anti-drone net, it didn't help because drone went at the entrance to this corridor and it hit the vehicle. Well, I guess those videos are not quite rare nowadays. So Russians posted their drone, it's flown here, it's fiber optic controlled, and it's just waiting for some of the Ukrainian vehicle to appear on this road. But Ukrainian army sent a reconnaissance group to check out the roads before sending some of the vehicles. And they cut the connection, yeah, this fiber optic controlled drone. Likely they were approaching the drone from behind, so they were not spotted. You see, yeah, kind of, this is the coil, and this is the RPG shell on the top. Once again, they cut just in case. I would be very, very careful with it right now. But they know what to do. They operate with those kind of the systems themselves. And judging on this coil, guys, it's very, very big. I think the range of it could be even 40 kilometers easily. So those legs and kind of the big drone, 9 inches at least, maybe 10 inches, 12. From this perspective, it's hard to tell, but it's very huge and the camera is here. So the drone operator was pointing to that side. Our guys were approaching from behind. Probably they spotted the drone well before and they decided to isolate it from communication. Yeah, they disassembled it, so our guys, they know how to deal with that. And this is probably a communication. This is the big battery, and this is the coil, and this is the shell on the top. Yeah, it's a very, very big, huge coil. All right, let's continue with some of the kaboom news. This is the power plant of Voronezh that yesterday was hit. That's the very sophisticated part of this power plant, TPP-1 it's called, which is no longer working. And you see that this wall is basically absent. Also in the windows you may see the big hole from the other side. It means that not just a single missile hit this place. And yes, I am saying about missiles, probably Neptunes. It wasn't a drone strike, and judging on this huge damage, indeed it was caused by some of the big payload. Okay, Taganrog, Russia, something was hit. So far this video is very fresh. I'll try to figure out what it was. Well, as this source says, it's the substation. We also have this channel, it's called Supernova Plus. Well, it's the key substation of this region of Taganrog. It's called T25. Also, there are some of the saboteurs in Russia. For example, in Bashkortostan, they fired up some sort of the local electrical transformator, or how to call it. Locals also report about the kaboom happened in Korneva, that's the local substation. Meanwhile, Russia also hits Ukrainian energy infrastructure, and since Ukraine is way smaller compared to Russia, Yes, Ukraine struggles more with absence of energy. The last night there were multiple of the blackouts, and the Ukrainian energy company, the main one, Ukrenergo, I think it's called, reported that all of the works they've done the last winter to restore energy infrastructure, all of that was already demolished. So they'll have now to restore everything once again, and these days it could be critical because it's already damn cold in Ukraine. It's November month, middle of it. And in the coming days it's going to be even colder because winter is out there. It's coming. So Putin wants just to terrorize the Ukrainian population, Ukrainian people, to make life in Ukraine almost impossible. As well as Russians targeted the last night some of the nuclear substations. And those could be crucial because substations are needed to supply nuclear power plants, their cooling systems. What they are doing is just crazy. I mean, what Russia is doing here. Ukraine is responding on Russian long-range strikes with its own drones, missiles, not just hitting the Russian refineries, but also Russian power plants. But never ever Ukraine hits the Russian nuclear substations. That's the new type of the threat from Russia, not just for Ukraine, but for entire Europe. My friends, I'm gonna keep you updated. Today I'm planning to release one more video because there is the topic I want to discuss. It's about Ukrainian military support. We have outstandingly good news, but it requires separate video. And thank you so much for supporting my channel, especially those people who do it on Patreon and on membership of the channel. The link for Patreon is in the video description just below. Membership, just press the join button, I guess, over here. But if you do not have the opportunity to support me in that way, you may just press the like to this video and subscribe to the channel. And that helps me a lot also because YouTube propels this video all around in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much, my friends, for that as well. And I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.